Welcome in to the Uncrowned Post-Fight Show. UFC 317 just wrapped up, and Ilia Topuria is the brand new lightweight champion of the world, now a two-division champion. I am one of your three hosts. Hunter Burks, joined alongside me is Mr. New York Rick, Eric Jackman, that I just got done watching the watch party with. And we have a very special guest. We're actually approaching on his territory. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm well, man. You were cutting out there, but I figured you were introducing me. But how's it going, fellas? It's good to see you. This is a fun arrangement. I think this is the first time I've actually done a show with Connor, I believe. I've done some with Rick, but this is my first time with Connor.
Wow, first time
I
with
think
Connor.
So. I think it is, yeah.
It should be the first time we've ever done anything together.
Yeah, so this is we're breaking ground here, fellas.
This is quite a trio.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about
and
it.
we got the fights we wanted, right? Like this is exactly what we wanted, was a good night like this. So this is perfect.
Yeah.
Me and Rick,
Obviously, our voices are quite hoarse from the
Ilia Topuria against Charles Oliveira. We just reacted to it live. We can't believe what just happened. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Chuck, what are your thoughts on El Matador's championship victory against Charles Oliveira?
I just find it like crazy. I wasn't able. I was watching the fight, so I wasn't able to kind of sit along with you guys. But I find it crazy that he was able to call his shot again. And there is something that translates very well when somebody has this kind of confidence, where they say, "I'm going to go do this thing." They make a walkout to the type of situation where you're like, the escalation that they put on themselves. He goes in there. And then takes care of business like that with no nerves whatsoever. I was posting about this. I was like, the guy looked like he had absolutely no nerves in like one of the biggest situations he's been in. And he just fights his fight and looks as good as he ever has. Now he's finished the kind of relish tray of Volkanovski, Holloway, and Oliveira, which was something we've all talked about in historical context, being just one of the best three, consecutive fights in anybody's career, and especially in title fights, all knockouts. It feels like, to me, guys, you tell me what you think, but this feels like we haven't had something like this in a long time. When back in the day when McGregor was doing it and when like these guys were doing it, that's when it felt like this, when it was alive. It was a collective experience. We're all like, oh my God, did you see that? That's where we're at. Like, finally, I feel like a guy has delivered us there again.
Yeah, you say McGregor and these guys. I don't think there are these guys.
Yeah, right.
I think
right.
it's just right. McGregor. McGregor is the one who was able to capture the imagination in this way. He would call his shot. He would say what he's going to do. He would go out and do it. And Ilia Topuria is following that mold. Yesterday, he's celebrating the victory. He's having a party already celebrating the victory over Charles. He knew that he was going to knock him out in the first round. We have not seen this since Conor McGregor. It's not even hyperbole. Look at this. Thanks for celebrating the victory with me. This is his team in the restaurant ahead of the fight.
This looks like he is celebrating a victory tonight. It looks like it was a video from the.
I know.
He was already celebrating the victory tonight. And honestly, when he's making the walk and his music is hitting and he. I said it to Rick during. He's like shaking Mark Goddard's hand like he's at a cocktail hour.
Yeah, he looks like he's just. They said it in the on the commentary. It'd be hard to imagine his heartbeat getting above a certain rate because the guy just has the coolness and the calmness under pressure. He's smirking in the cage. He has his next call out lined up. It is McGregor. I have been hesitant to ever say something like that because we have seen so many people who burn hot and then it's not quite McGregor. This is the carbon copy. This is what we have seen from Conor McGregor and nobody before him. And now we're seeing it again in Ilia Topuria. He knows what's going to happen. He calls his shot. He manifests these things. Now we've got this grudge match seemingly with Paddy Pimblett coming up. And that's another thing that he planted the seeds for many, many moons ago.
Yeah.
As you said, the excitement that we had around McGregor is sorely lacking and has been for a long time, 10 years. Nearly since that epic run by McGregor. We are now in a new era to the point that I believe anything. When Ilia Topuria tells me that he's going to chase Islam Makhachev up to 170 pounds, I believe him. I believe that he could do that. I believe he'd try. And the guy's unbelievable. I could not be more impressed. You mentioned that 3-fight run. to go through Volkanovski the way he did, to go through Max Holloway the way he did, and then to go through Charles Oliveira the way he did is reminiscent of only one man. And the other thing that's impressive about it is it's seemingly getting easier, right? Volkanovski, I thought, was quite competitive in that fight. Yeah. Max Holloway, a little less so. Max had his moments, but man, Ilia Topuria was bombing on him. Now he just walked through Charles Oliveira.
That's what's crazy, man. Yeah, he walked through him. And man, just kind of going back to your point, I think there's been plenty of times we've wanted there to be a star to kind of emerge because you want to feel good, right? Like you had your first bump and you're like, oh, that was good. Let me do another one. You know what I mean? But you can't get one. Like for years, we've been kind of, let's say that like we had that feeling once and you fall in love with it. And because you see, it's a collective experience. I used to talk about this all the time. Like anytime you can gather around and share a sense of awe that we can talk like this is great. We can sit and talk about it right afterwards. We just don't get, you get some big moments. But nobody who actually starts to penetrate that weird transcendent like space where you're like, this guy's just different. And it really is the calling of the shots. His look, he's so calm. It's all of these things. It's the full package. He goes in there and he's able to do it. And I think you nailed it, man. To make it with the escalation of where he's at, going up a weight class now, people are talking about the Jai Herbert. Well, he got rocked in that one. And to go in there and basically face no real danger, no real danger there. I know he had that little leg lock moment, but you could see that he was completely poised through that. Just no sense of danger in that fight. And just to put him away in a beautiful, spectacular fashion, the way that, I guess Conor used to do, it feels like this actually feels familiar in that way.
It feels familiar. What I'm interested in is can it be different as well, right? Can it be more than just us alluding to Conor McGregor? Can it be right. Ilia Topuria to take it and make it a completely different and new thing? This was around the point where all of a sudden the Conor McGregor thing started to escalate into the Nate Diaz fights. Then we go even further down. We're going to Floyd Mayweather. What is the path that Ilia Topuria takes from here? I think is going to be super fascinating because it's kind of mirrored to here. But this was where it got different. This was where Conor McGregor started doing things that like nobody was doing before. Can Ilia Topuria do that? Can he improve on the original? Is going to be super fascinating to see. But I think he's as talented as anybody who's ever come along and probably can.
Yeah, and I was actually, so let me, if I put this straight, right? It was after when McGregor went up and beat Eddie Alvarez.
Eddie Alvarez,
right? And then he bounced over to the boxing ring. Was that correct? Like, or did he fight somebody after Eddie?
So
sometimes I get these things mixed up.
I'm gonna look it up now.
But I don't think there's anything imminent. See, I think there was a part of that commentary tonight that actually really nailed it because I think it was Joe. Somebody was like just saying like he's not here to be a champion. Like he's already a champion. Like he's not here to be a champion. He's here to be the greatest ever. There's something that translates about that because now you're chasing something historic that's make it. So you're saying how does he separate himself from a guy like Conor McGregor? That's how. Because Conor McGregor didn't ascend to that level. He captivated the imagination. He still very much captivates the imagination in these horrible ways now. But like, we're at that point now where, he's clearly not in the GOAT talk or anything like that. But this guy can be. If he stays on the path he's on, that's what's going to distinguish him in the end.
And you were right. So yes, after Eddie Alvarez, it was over to boxing for the Floyd Mayweather fight, and then the return against Habib, and then Cerrone, and it went on from there. The Dustin Poirier fights. You make a great point. Like this has potential for Conor. Conor capped out right after the Eddie Alvarez fight. Now not certainly monetarily, and I think that's a big difference that we should be clear about. Like as epic as the performances from Ilia Topuria are, the key around Conor McGregor was the generation of money for the UFC, was his ability to transcend even MMA and capture the imagination of people outside of the sport. I would venture to say, and this is respectfully, that I don't think Ilia Topuria has quite done that yet. But if he continues on this path, I think it's no doubt that he'll be able to. If he's able to do what Conor McGregor didn't do, which is now defend that lightweight title, continue to have that lightweight title, heaven knows, maybe go up to 170 and chase Islam Makhachev if he can capture that title. He may be able to do things that put him into another category.
Do you feel like tonight was that catapult moment? Because I felt like even when he's beating Volkanovski, still more of a, diehard's delight. You're like, this guy, he's something, like we've watched him. And then you know, he does it again with Holloway, and I think that there was an inkling, but I don't feel like it was like tonight. It felt like, because maybe it's International Fight Week, and there's just a bigger buzz, I think, with this fight. Charles Oliveira being who he is, but the amount of eyeballs, the amount of scrutiny, the amount of things going on, this felt like something. Like, just it felt like the moment for me that he's like, okay, if you didn't pay attention, now you're paying attention.
To me, Aldo for McGregor was Holloway for Topuria, right? It was the one that you go,
yeah, probably,
holy
yeah, that's
shit,
probably right.
This guy took out the legend of this division and is the truth. This one was the Eddie Alvarez. This is sitting on the cage with the two belts, and we've got the image of Ilia Topuria sitting in the middle of the cage with the two belts that is going to go viral on social media. Everybody's going to see it. This image right here. And it will be unmistakable. Yeah. It will be undeniable. And people will...
Man, he's just tailor-made for these. Look at this. Look at that picture. That is insane.
In the same way that the other guy was.
Yes.
And it feels almost like, I feel to a certain degree disrespectful to keep alluding to it,
right.
But it's the only... it's so familiar, as you said. It's the closest comparison, and it's the biggest thing that we've ever had in this sport.
And the most sincere one, to be honest. Like, because we've said this before. Man, has he got like the star power? But it's always one of those kind of false hope things. And some people have... longevity, and some people have moments, but I think what we're seeing here is the building, because it's always, how do you handle the escalation of stakes, right? And he's handling it with such ease,
improving,
right?
Getting better.
Yes, and I think that that's what feels so familiar. So it's going to be inevitable for a little bit, you know. But I'm like, it's a good thing. I think when we're talking about that, it's a good thing. It means that we're in a healthy spot, and hey, somebody's making the hair rise on your arms again. That's what the UFC's been after for a while here.
We've needed it, and you have to imagine on the heels of this, the UFC is going to push him to the moon, is going to get behind him in the way that they used to be able to do when they had Conor and Ronda, and they knew this is our blue chip, this is our thoroughbred, and we are going to put every resource behind them. It feels like it's maybe been less so for in the modern era around certain fighters. I think Ilia Topuria has now gotten the mantle and is deserving of kind of that. You put him on every possible opportunity you can. He's already doing press conferences seemingly every 4 hours.
That's true.
Maybe the UFC can co-opt those. I have a question for you, Chuck.
All right.
We saw them cut to multiple people cage side, and then one of them got into the cage.
Yes, exactly. This is what I was going to bring up. Okay, go ahead.
Who are you most interested in seeing Ilia Topuria fight? I don't want to know who you think he's going to fight, because I think the Paddy Pimblett getting into the cage probably telegraphs that a little bit.
Yeah.
And we see it here. Who would you be most interested in seeing him fight?
Most interested?
Arman Tsarukyan.
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje.
I mean, I would put Gaethje third. I think it's just because Gaethje's had a bunch of moments. It'd almost be like you're kind of, and I'm not trying to diminish Gaethje, but it would be like I almost feel like you're taking a step down from Charles if you did this. But I would say that if you're talking to me strictly about the fight you'd like to see because it presents the most danger, I think that Tsarukyan is the guy. I know, like you just said, it's probably not gonna happen. And there is I feel like there's sometimes a shelf life for like something really vital. It was a beautiful thing for them to bring in Paddy Pimblett to the cage, because they haven't been doing that. They've been doing a little more lately, but bringing him in there and just kind of planting that seed, that's what you got to do, right? And I feel like that's had to be because they did the same thing with Van earlier, and I'm like, I love this. This is what it's about, man. You're already saying like, this is what's next. You know, here's the sequel or whatever you just watched. I love that, and Paddy Pimblett obviously can get on the microphone and immediately start to sell that fight. So once he went up there, I'm like, if they do that, man, I'm totally good.
Could not agree more. I think competitive level, I agree with you that it's probably Arman Tsarukyan. Let's discount Islam Makhachev for a second. Let's let him handle business at 170 and see where that shakes out with Jack Della Maddalena. I think Arman
don't you wonder now like how that fight would have played out after seeing him in that? Him in that shape, the way he came in there and just handled his business, man, my God.
I was long on the corner that I did not think that fight would be competitive, and I did not want to see it. I've changed my stance after tonight. I've changed my stance. But I did say I needed to see this Charles fight. I wanted to see how he looked before because there's a danger, right? There's a danger that if you were Ilia Topuria and you jump into the fight against the number one pound for pound, and we can have a discussion about number one pound for pound a little bit later in the show. If you step into that fight with the number one pound for pound and you falter there, That's real momentum killer, and that's one that you can't get
Right.
back. Now we see him against Charles in a obviously winnable fight. He took him out in dramatic fashion, and you can now build toward Islam Makhachev and make it feel like it's going to be competitive. Because I'm in the position where I feel like Ilia Topuria can do anything in the way that I felt
Yeah.
about Conor McGregor. There is nothing that I don't
That's the-
believe he can do.
We need a nickname. It's like, what was he, Mystic Mac? And we got like, what is it,
We needed-
telepathic? Topuria. I don't know what it is, but it's like
That's pretty
he's
good,
like,
Chuck. That's pretty good.
but he's on that level. You're right. I think that's what tonight did. There was an emphasis on that sort of like self-belief. All of his, like, just what he's been capable of, what he's done. I think there was an emphasis, and this was the moment you're like, well, let's see if he really can do that. Charles Oliveira had, he had the Arman Sarukian fight, like if we're talking about him, like he barely loses that fight, and some people thought he won that fight. So if you're doing the MMA math, you're just like, nobody's walking through him like this.
No,
and I think that's really that's the key, right? Like nobody was walking through him like this.
No, and nobody's walking through any of these last opponents in the way that Ilia Topuria has. Agree with you. I loved Paddy Pimblett getting into the octagon. As you said, it is another throwback, right? We're talking about allusions to that era that we're so fond of, and the nostalgia that it can create. This is it. You're already selling the next fight, and they have the history, and we'll run the tape of them scrapping and throwing the hand sanitizer at the event. We'll have them at the press conference the next day. They're yelling at each other on the stage. They're doing a face-off years in advance of an actual fight. It's time to capitalize on it because
100%.
we have it now. We have it now. There is no reason to wait. Let Islam Makhachev handle business at 170. Arman and Justin could maybe be the fight to make, while Ilia and Paddy settle business. Take advantage of this opportunity that you've been gifted and given. And I think the fact that they walked him into the cage makes me think that they are ready to do it.
Yeah. Can I tell you something, though? Why that felt so good? Because you got both of those fights, right? Like they kind of set up the flyweight one, which I thought was brilliant, and then they go and do this one with Paddy Pimblett. In a sport where we've been blue balls, or however you want to say it, with like big fights. And I mean, like the things that you want to see, and you can't get nice things, right? Like you can't get Jones, Aspinall. You couldn't get Islam, Ilia. You couldn't get these fights. Now they're setting the table on something that looks like you will get it. And it seems in the moment, because that's when the hysteria is the biggest around a fight, it fills that void a little bit. I love that, man. I really do. I think that it's great because it makes all of it makes the magnitude of both fights feel that much bigger.
Yeah, and one of the other great points you made was, all due respect to Arman Sarukian, who I think is a fantastic fighter, as a sparring partner verbally on the mic, the Paddy Pimblett fight is going to feel mega because they are going to create magic every time they get into an exchange. I think there's a genuine dislike.
Yeah.
They seem to be very cordial with each other to the point of respecting each other. And maybe for Charles, potentially something to think about. But for Paddy, this is a huge opportunity for him as well, right? The Michael Chandler win, I think, catapulted him into an area where the doubters kind of have to be silent.
Yeah.
Now he's potentially hopping right into a title shot. It makes all the sense in the world. Capitalize on it now. In the same way that Josh Van 3 weeks ago was unranked, wins a fight, enters the rankings, and now is conceivably the #1 contender for Alexandre Pantoja. Ride this hot hand. We're in Vegas right now. Ride the hot hand and just keep riding this till the wheels fall off.
This is Connor's beat, man. I mean, this is like when I was in the gambling terrain here, but that was. And I was talking a little bit with Pete about this on his show, but it's one of those things that, like, that kind of acceleration, we've seen it a couple of times, but never in this kind of seismic leap towards a #1 contender in 3 weeks' notice. I don't think that we've ever seen anything. I mean, Moicano gets boosted up into a title fight, but that's kind of one of those crazy circumstances. I remember Chris Lieben back in the day had like 2 fights in like 2 weeks. You remember that? And he won both of them, and that was his big moment. You're like, Chris Lieben, man, what a, this is like that, And so you kind of have this magical other part that was the other profiled fight on this card, and you got a dude who's 23. Like, this is the great thing, right? How old is Topuria? Because he's still like 28.
He's either 27 or 28.
I think he might just have turned 28. Like, these guys are both in their 20s, and suddenly you have.
He's 28.
Yeah, so 28, and he's where he is, and now you get Joshua Van. And both of those featherweight, I mean, the flyweight fights tonight were like ridiculous. But you get this kid who suddenly comes flying through and just like that performance, like just standing in there, like that's probably a fight of the year. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I was like, that to me was like, that's got to be, on the short list for fight of the year when we come to that time. But just to stand in there with that kind of poise and that kind of like, I'm willing to die kind of attitude with it, man, that was fun.
It is my front runner for fight of the year at the moment.
Yeah.
That was absolutely incredible. The volume and I think Royval's contribution to that fight is going to be a little bit kind of forgotten just because the Van story is so easy to get behind and it's so easy to get swept up in the momentum. But the fact that Royval was putting up 400 plus punches and bringing the fight to Joshua Van created that. It made for that fight, and it was an absolutely incredible performance by both. I think Royval's stock goes up as well. He's in an unfortunate position, right? Like he's kind of been this guy that can claw his way back to the top, but you're either looking at Pantoja and now you're looking at a guy in Van who stops his momentum. He was able to get past Moreno, but it's a tough climb, I think, for Royval. I don't know where he goes from here, but the story I certainly believe is Joshua Van.
100%. And I think when you like, the 3-week thing is what we're talking about. But if you look at it, he lost last July, right? And we were talking about this kid's 22, give him some time. He's still like a dynamic fighter. He's going to learn and he'll grow. Did anybody expect that he would win 5 fights within 11 months or almost pretty close to a year, but whatever that is? No. I mean, to win that amount of fights and to come, skyrocketing back into basically where he's at is just, I mean, I don't think it's paralleled. Like it's a crazy run. I think it's great because I don't know how old John Jones was. Like I don't have that information in front of me. He was 23, I believe, though, right?
23 when he won the title, yes.
So I don't know if he can catch him, but I mean, that's something they should consider. That is something they should consider because if this kid can do it, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I actually never even thought about that because I didn't consider this played out so fast. I didn't even think of the idea of Josh Van fighting for a title. I wonder if he's even in striking range of that or if he's about to turn 24. But I think what's so shocking about the Van run, as you said, like how fast it happened, is we typically don't see it this way. It typically is like, think about Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria has to beat Youssef Zalal, Damon Jackson, Ryan Hall, Jai Herbert, Bryce Mitchell. Just as impressive as some of the performances by Josh Van, but the ascent is slower. You just don't typically see a guy who's ready for the big time to go from 3 weeks ago unranked to fighting the number 1 contender and beating him and rocking him in round 3. It is incredibly impressive. He has a super fan friendly style, which I think contributes a lot to this, right? If he was going out there and wrestling guys to death, I don't think he gets this push, right? If he was the Movsar Evloev of this division, I don't think he gets pushed in that way. And so you roll the dice here and you put a guy in there who's 23 years old against Pantoja. Even if he falters, right, there's going to be 5 different opportunities for him to get back there, which I think is the fun part of this. Like, even if this is too much too soon, even if this is too early for Josh Van to be fighting a guy in Pantoja, which, by the way, I think we need to get to. We kind of jumped over that fight. We will need to get to that fight. But to fight a guy in Pantoja, it's going to be tough sledding. And I certainly think there's going to be a grappling deficit that is going to come into play there, as we saw in the fight against Kai Kara France. But he's 23. He can be back there. He can be back there 2 years. He can be back there 2 months. It doesn't really matter. You take this shot and you take this opportunity. And like we said about putting Paddy in the cage, I love the fact that they put Josh Van in there, especially because he had just fought the fight before. And you're putting him
even
right
when
back in there.
Even when they flash to him, right? Like he's cage side to watch the fight. He comes right back out. He's sitting there right at the cage watching the fight, and everybody just cheers because you're like, dude, this dude just went through a war and he's already back out there ready to go. So they bring him in. I love it, man. Like you said, I don't think it's the end of the world if he gets schooled by a guy like Pantoja, because just like we were talking about Topuria, Pantoja is the exact same thing. Like he just keeps getting better. Like he goes into this one and the Asakura fight, like both these fights, I feel like there weren't really any big danger moments for him. Like he just kind of went in there. Like look at the way that fight started. Like some guys, when they get to their, when it gets into multiples with their title defenses, they start to hold their stick a little tight. They don't want to give up what they have. So they do a feel out process. You can think of John Jones, Anderson Silva, those types of guys. They would have this huge feel out process before they would start engaging. This guy, when right ends, bit down on the mouth, trades in the pocket, shoots in, dumps him on his ass, gets his back, and then he puts him in trouble for the rest of that round. Like, just basically like a buzzsaw, man. I was like, this is crazy, man. Like, and then of course it played out the way it did. He just, went right through. He goes right through that opponent, like Kai Kara France, and then, you're just like, dude, it shouldn't be getting easier.
Not only that, not only should it
man.
not be getting easier, and not only did he come out, as you said, like a buzzsaw, but he's now beaten all of these guys multiple times. Like, he beat Kai Kara France a tough, like, he is continuing to lap the field. It's also why the Josh Van fight makes a lot of sense, because there really are no other guys. The guy has just lapped the field so many times. I can't say enough about Pantoja, and you hit on something that I continue to stress when I talk about Pantoja. I'm a big fan of Pantoja. Admittedly, I'm a little bit biased. I love Pantoja.
You have him ranked pretty high in our.
I have him
rankings.
6. I'm gonna put him at 4.
Yeah,
and I've pretty much decided that. He's behind Merab, he's behind Islam, he's behind Ilia. It'd be hard to hop any of those guys, but what I think is so special about him is what you said. It's the reckless abandon. It's the willingness to engage in firefights. It's the willingness to put himself at risk in order to try to finish a fight. And we've seen him against strikers. We've seen him against grapplers. We've seen him against guys who are well-rounded. The fighting style is always the same for Pantoja. He's walking forward. He's going to be the one pressing. And that's every single fight, because he wants to come in there to finish fights in a division that is not notoriously known for those kind of finishes. This guy is a one of one. And we look like, history will be kind to him. We certainly look at Demetrius Johnson's 12 championship victories at flyweight, and that is the gold standard. That is the gold standard amongst any champion in the UFC. But you look at the other records. He has the most wins in flyweight history. He has passed for the most finishes in flyweight history. He is racking up the things that you do as the most dominant champion in that division. It's crazy that Demetrius is so far ahead in that one specific title win category, but every other record is going to be Pantoja's. He is just completely dominant and exciting to boot. So he's going to be a top 5 pound for pound guy, I have to imagine, on everybody's records. But he's also the guy that when the bell rings, he is going to be the one walking forward trying to press the action, regardless of the opponent in front of him.
I will say too, because in Demetrius, and I'm not trying to like diminish Demetrius, what he's done, but like if you go back and you look at the competition at the time in flyweight, and I know there aren't too many guys in the division still, but back then it was pretty bare, and it was like you're just kind of taking on whoever he's had to, because they didn't have better options. Right now, obviously you have Van. They had Muhammad Mahayev, and they let him go. I mean, to me, that was a golden opportunity. Maybe they bring him back at some point. And Askarov too. There's a couple of dudes you're like, I don't know why they're not still
in
around.
The UFC.
Yeah, it just doesn't. But anyway, it's a lot more. The competitive balance has been a lot more. In fact, when Moreno and Figueiredo were going at it, it was like, oh man, they're so. If it tilts this way a little bit, it's going to be that way. It felt like such a coin flip, and you're thinking the parity in that division was just too much. They're just too active. There's too much chaos. There's too many scrambles. But now you get this guy who's, created this gulf between him and everybody else. I think that's what makes it more impressive to me. Everything felt pretty even until he got that time. And now he's gotten that much better. It'd be very interesting. You mentioned the rankings, the like putting him fourth because he can't leapfrog those top 3. What a great position for the UFC to have 4 guys like that right now. Like they have 4 guys. You always, you know what a BS word invincible is, but for the casual audience and the people at large, they love it when these guys, when you can't imagine them losing, right? Like they love it when guys feel invincible. And I feel like you've got a lot of guys like that right now in the UFC.
I want to give you actually a few quick news updates, and then I want to ask you something again about Pantoja. So we'll circle back to that. One thing, for those unaware, Jake Paul wins by unanimous decision over Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So on the boxing side of things, Jake Paul successful against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. via unanimous decision. Shout out to ArielHelwani, who was working that event, and I'm looking forward to watching that back. Dana White at the press conference says the following. He doesn't know who let Paddy Pimblett into the cage.
Oh, no.
And that it should never have happened. But he was no longer cage side at the time. So maybe our excitement over this needs to be cooled because it seems like maybe it will not be Paddy Pimblett next. I think that would be a grave mistake if they do not go with Paddy Pimblett. But it seems like Dana White is maybe in line with meritocracy. maybe Arman Sarukian will get his opportunity.
So hilarious. He throws the wrench into it before we even can celebrate. It's so funny, man.
It's also so fantastic because like Paddy Pimblett is seemingly the guy that like the fans think, oh, this is their pet project. This is the guy that they obviously are going to push. And then Dana White's like, no, not so fast. It actually might not be. I don't know who let him do that.
If it ends up being Sarukian, like I said, the way we started, it's still a great fight. I think it's going to be. The only thing is, with Paddy Pimblett, you have a natural foil. You know what I mean? That's the only difference. Like you're gonna have a guy who's gonna bring out a side of Topuria that maybe that's also informative as you discover this guy and you're trying to figure him out. Like that's fun. I'm not sure that Arman will do that, but he will certainly add doubt to the equation, and that's equally good in some,
And we see this tweet here from Arman saying it was never supposed to be Charles. I can finish Ilia, simple as that, and he knows it too. That's why he's avoiding the real #1 contender. Strong case by Arman, right? Like you were in line for that title opportunity, and then unfortunately had to pull out due to the back injury. Islam now moves up. Arman is the name that was right there, and so I would understand if they went with Arman. I think you capitalize on the Paddy thing. One more quick thing. The performance of the night bonuses. Ilia Topuria and Gregory Rodriguez. Shout out to RoboCop. Fight of the night, obviously, Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. Some of the easiest awards that we could claim here tonight.
Those were vicious knockouts, man.
Vicious.
Both of those.
Vicious.
Both of those.
To the point that we had to get medical updates about Jack Hermanson. Fortunately, we found during the broadcast that he was medically cleared, and we're very happy to hear that. But that was a completely brutal knockout.
I have to go back and review the tape of how you guys reacted to those knockouts.
The Ilia Topuria one, I hit my knees. I legitimately hit my knees. I could not believe, because I've been long saying, like, is the size difference going to be the problem? Is the power not going to be there? And he put Charles out in a way that you don't see Charles go out. Dana White also saying that Topuria's wife and kid were in the octagon. And okay, here we go. So Dana White was saying that Topuria's family was in the octagon and bringing another fighter in shouldn't have happened. It was a bad call by whoever allowed it to happen. So
because
maybe this is the safety concern and not necessarily that they're not willing to do Paddy Pimblett.
Got my toes crossed.
Let's go back to the Paddy thing for sure. Okay, I had a question for you about Pantoja.
Okay.
We saw this with Demetrius Johnson, the lack of respect that the flyweight champion is going to get. And I thought that Figueiredo and Moreno did a great job to kind of spotlight the flyweight division when it seemed like it was at its lowest. It seemed like the UFC was ready to put that thing on the shelf and just completely wipe the flyweight division out. They were cutting flyweight fighters. I thought it was all but done. I thought these guys were going to have to move up to 35. They kept it alive, and now we've got another dominant champion in the way that Demetrius was. But digging in garbage bins and finding whatever they possibly could. They're at the back.
I don't know if I quite said that, Rick, but go ahead.
They're in the dumpster. They're in the absolute dumpster, and they're pulling guys out. No, but there was a search, right? There was always a search. We're seeing the same thing with Pantoja, right, to a certain degree. I agree with you that I think the level of competition has been raised at the flyweight division, but we are seeing him fight guys that he's fought multiple times. We're seeing the Kai Asakuras of the world coming over and getting immediate title shots. We're seeing now Joshua Van being fast-tracked to a title shot. Is this going to hurt the opportunities for Pantoja to get the respect that he deserves? Because it feels like he has no equal, to the point that maybe it feels like flyweight is not as good as it is. I do not feel this way, for the record. I agree with you that I think flyweight is as good as it's ever been, but I think he's just that level above. But will that hurt his Q rating? Will that hurt people's ability to get behind a flyweight champion in the way that it did for Demetrius Johnson?
I don't think so, especially not with Van, because this was the brilliant thing about tonight was a flyweight showcase, right? You're putting them both up there. They both delivered, and then you square them off. I mean, to me, this might have been the biggest flyweight night since they were doing that 4-man tournament to introduce the thing. And it's funny because back then people were they were more like welcome. They wanted to. They were just curious as to how this would look, and they wanted to see Benavidez and things like that, like as as natural weight, but like. You cut forward all of that time. We've had some really good flyweight fights, but I never felt like any of it was out of your seat like we saw tonight. Those two fights really delivered, man. I'm like, to me, if there was ever a moment where there's going to be respect earned, I think it was tonight. And they did such a great job of sort of baiting the hook with Van coming in there that I think, at least in the short term, like I really do believe that all eyes are going to be on that fight now, man. I think that that's going to feel like a big fight. And how often do we say that about a flyweight fight?
Yeah, and you put the highlight reels of Josh Van and Alexandre Pantoja together, and it can't be anything but incredible. They have both delivered so many highlight reel moments in the octagon. Josh Van obviously newer to it, but the things that he's been able to do in such a short amount of time have been incredible. Okay, I think we should move down the rest of the card. Beneil Dariush picking up a huge win over Renato Moicano. Looked dicey in the first round, got rocked at the very end of the first round. We're seeing that here. Was able to quickly recover and then come back to completely dominate round 2, take round 3 as well. 29-28, Beneil Dariush. What did you make of the early trouble for Beneil Dariush and then his ability to kind of bring it together in rounds 2 and 3?
I mean, he's always kind of been this really, like, it feels like he's been this for years. I think it's just the gray hair that throws me off. But like he always seems like he's very like calculated, measured, and even when he's kind of in trouble, like he's still in it and stuff. But this was like a true juxtaposition. I was actually we make our picks for these fights, and I had picked Dariush, and as that first round was unfolding, I was like, whoops, I made a big mistake on that one, and Moicano looked really good, but the problem was once he started getting into all the like the positions on the ground where Dariush's body is on him and like just weighing him down and like putting him in all these bad positions. You could tell he was starting to gas pretty quickly, and it started to show up in the second round. It's just wily veteran, strength, old man strength stuff. Like he's just in there like using all of that, and it looked like a Dariush fight. I mean, that was the kind of how his career has gone. He's had some really good knockouts in his career and some finishes, but that to me was just, watching him scramble a couple of times in the scrambles where he's rolling, he's trying to get out of trouble. I was like, this is like vintage Dariush,
100%. It's exactly how Beneil Dariush fights, and he's always live to kind of make that comeback. His recovery is absolutely incredible. To be down on a double leg after getting rocked like that is perfect. Beneil Dariush. That's exactly what I would describe. If I said, how does Beneil Dariush fight? I would say he's about to get rocked, and then he's about to be in on a double and recover it, and then go on to win the next 2 rounds. It's exactly what he does. It's funny you said the old man thing, because that was kind of the story leading into this fight.
I know what you're going to say.
I'll give you a guess on how old each of these men is.
I already know. They're both 36, and they're both 15 days apart. They're like born like 15 days apart.
I love it.
It's so weird to me because Moicano like strikes me as such a younger man, and I think it's just Dariush looks older.
Is it his investments in Bitcoin? Is that what does it for you with Renato?
I hope that he kind of stays around in relevant fights, though. I think he will.
Yeah, agree.
Because we finally started shining light on what a character he is over the last couple of years, man, and I don't want him to fade away yet. You know what I mean?
It would be a shame to lose him. He has finally started exposing it, and he's such a great character. He is 36, though. I wonder, how long he wants to do this. He has so many other interests. He got his title shot. He came up short against Islam Makhachev. I wonder what's left for him to kind of prove at this point, or maybe he shifts. He has a successful podcast. He's got all these investments.
He reminds me of Masvidal. Like Masvidal had that big year. And kind of shot in the guy who was under our nose the whole time, and all of a sudden you're paying attention to him on a whole different level. You're paying attention to his personality. He had a lot of other things going on outside of fighting, and then he kind of had his career wind down, and you're like, that was that. You realize that was the high point, and we'll see how it plays out for Moicano. But if that was his high point, was kind of getting to the putting himself in a position where he could be thrust into a title shot against Islam, it's not the worst in the world. He had a very good run through that period there.
He had a great career, and I think, as you said, I'd like to see him around. It doesn't even necessarily need to be in the cage. Give him opportunities on a desk. Highlight his podcast.
Yeah.
The guy's extremely interesting. I would love to just continue to hear from him.
Well, you guys know, you probably, when Ariel's talking to him, I feel like he gets the best out of him every time, man.
I would love to let's get Renato Moicano over to Uncrowned to give him a regular segment, because he's absolutely electric on the microphone. A good look. He was there in the first round. He lost 29-28. Yeah. He dropped 1 round. It was a 1-round difference. I don't think it's the end of the road, but I do wonder, like, what do those fights look like at the end of Renato Moicano's career? Moving on to the curtain jerker for the pay-per-view, Payton Talbott versus Felipe Lima. The story of this one was the return of Payton Talbott, right?
What a card.
By the way, I'm looking at this card. 3 decisions to kick it off. But did it feel like that?
No,
It
because
didn't
they were
feel
all
like
great
that.
fights, man. They all had
Yeah.
something to offer, you know?
It was absolutely incredible, and it got started by that fight between Payton Talbott and Felipe Lima. A bounce back for Payton Talbott, who was an underdog heading into this. I'm not sure if you had a chance to peep the odds, but
I did.
he was an underdog heading into this.
Huge
And
juxtaposition, right? Because he was like in his first couple of fights, he was he was a massive favorite
against Heone Barcelos. Like
Yeah.
in his last one, he was a massive favorite.
I know.
Like, nearing the 4-digit figures
Right.
in terms of being a favorite, and that was the wake up call. And to me, that's the story of the fight. The takedown defense was completely shifted. And now, certainly, I think there's a difference in level of opposition, right? Heone has shown himself to be a level above, and he showed that in the Cody Garbrandt win recently. But
Right.
what I saw from Payton Talbott was somebody who learned from his loss, went back to the drawing board, and said, I will not lose that same way again. Somebody might beat me, but I will not lose in that fashion. I will not put myself out there and look the way that I did. And against Felipe Lima, he showed that he had worked on those holes in the game. The striking was still just as dangerous. When they were on the feet, he was punishing Lima. And Lima is an undefeated prospect himself. Like, let's not forget how good Lima is.
He should have been the favorite. I mean, that was the right call.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lima had been. I think that they had it right, but I will say the reason that fight was so compelling was because you just had Payton Talbott. Like, he's already a compelling enough figure, and I did this big piece on him before his last fight. That's what, I could actually see some of the changes just from visiting him at his home in Reno, like where he had like the Barcelos poster on the wall, and him and his buddies were just laughing about it. And you start to think, well, did they take it too lightly? Were they like, and honestly, sometimes these things can end up being the greatest thing to happen to a young guy like that. Is you go in there and you realize that you're nowhere near as good as you thought you were, and you have big problems that you need to fix. The thing that stands out to me, man, and I wasn't sure how this would look. I was convinced that there would be moments where Felipe was going to try to take him down, and we'd find out pretty quickly how that was going to look. That did happen, but what he was able to do, and able to get up, and how the scrambles that he ended up on top a couple of times, he ended up in the dominant position a couple of times. That spoke to me about how precocious he really is. Like he's a sponge, man. Like if you ever really talk to him, like he'll recall his brain is just working all the time. And I think when he rededicated, he really leaned in, man, I was very, very impressed with that. I was like, man, this is a guy who was helpless, 8 takedowns, could not get up. I think it was like 10 minutes of control over a 15-minute fight where he's on the ground and comes back and puts on that performance. That was compelling theater, as Ariel likes to say. Like, that's crazy stuff to see a guy who, in whatever amount of months was that, 7 months, turn it around like that drastically.
And what I love about it is what you said is we saw the hole get immediately tested in the next fight, right? Because it could be easy where they match Payton Talbott up and it's against somebody who's going to strike with him, and he strikes with him and he looks as good as he looked in those fights leading up to the Barcelos fight. But what we saw in this fight was somebody who was aggressively pursuing the holes in Payton Talbott's game, and we got to see that. We got to see the scrambles, as you said. We got to see the reversals. We got to see how comfortable he looked getting up. We got to see all those things, the stuffed takedowns. I think you've touched on something interesting that's always fascinating to me about Payton Talbott is like he has this very like carefree nature to him, and that can be confused for somebody who's not like invested in it, right? Because you're so loose, you're so free, it can be confused for somebody who's not dedicated to this game. What I saw from Payton Talbott tonight was somebody who is dedicated to the game. Fixing of those holes is somebody who is singularly driven, and the striking looked as good as ever. Now, I think Lima is extremely tough, and it took a lot to kind of get him out of there, and he wasn't able to. But Payton Talbott's hands looked sharp, and the takedown defense was there. So I was as impressed as you were.
I picked him. I don't know how you picked on this one. I picked him
as well.
Yeah, because I was like, I guess I was saying, okay, leap of faith that he's going to be in a better shape, better form than he was last time, and he was. But I mean, the way it played out, I was still surprised because I thought he would still have moments where you would see that weakness. Maybe it was there a little bit, but I mean, he was able to get out of it, and I think that's the big part of it.
I had the same conclusion that you did. I believed in Payton Talbott's ability as a young man to figure out what he needed to do before this next fight. Quickly, Adrian Yanez, he called him out in the cage. Do you like that fight? I feel like that's a great one.
It feels like he's wanted that fight. I'm like, I feel like they should. Like, let's face it, man. this bit of matchmaking was one of the big surprises I thought on this card, because I thought if they're in the the Payton Talbott business, if they're like, we like this kid, we think he can be something, maybe even a star, they would have given him a layup in this fight. But I felt like they're like, no, we're gonna find out right now if you belong, here or not. I think that's the extent of what happened with the Barcelos fight, was that showed something where, like, I don't even know if you belong on this level. That's kind of where it was at, and he did that. So I'm like, at this point, if he's calling somebody out and he wants it, I'd be like, let's see it.
Yeah, and by the way, another illusion, right? We've been doing like parallels all night.
Yeah.
Joshua Van loses to Charles Johnson, a fantastic fighter. You throw him right back in there. Edgar Chairez, Cody Durden, Ray Saruya.
Yeah.
Like, that is the way you build a prospect. You get them tested. Maybe they do falter, but then you put them in there against the next tough guy and you see if they can fix those holes. You see if they have that resiliency. You see if they can bounce back. And we saw that. I also was thinking of Payton Talbott and Josh Van in comparison, in terms of, it's so you mentioned the learning from the defeat, right? You mentioned I've never suffered defeat and I don't know what it felt like, and it could be easy to kind of just feel overconfident. I also think it helps sometimes, and it might help Joshua Van,
right? Because
you don't know that you're supposed to lose this fight. You've only been really successful. You lost the one fight against Charles Johnson. He caught you. You really don't know that you're not supposed to beat Alexandre Pantoja. You'll probably start to believe that you can. And that might be his best attribute as a 23-year-old kid with stars in his eyes and looking like, this is my time. I don't care that Alexandre Pantoja is in front of me. So I another reason why I love that fight so much is just the youth of
I love his confidence.
Joshua Van.
But that's 23-year-old. Like, he's like, even when he's talking about Royval, like in the little they always have their little talking head moment in the promo, and he's just like, I think he's used to schooling younger guys and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna get to me, but he was so serious and sincere. I'm like, boy, it was like it set the table for that so nicely, to see this kid who's like, not gonna happen with me. And then he proved it. Like, he was getting pieced up with the jab, but yet all of a sudden, when he landed the first couple of counters, there were bigger shots. It felt like he was in control of a chaotic fight. It was bizarre, but he never felt that. Like, he never felt like he was reckless. It felt like he was the one. If you were going to say who's dictating control of this fight, it was going to be Joshua Van, because he was landing the poise kind of counters. There was a couple times where he's getting like hit pretty hard, but he would reset, go right back in there, and then he would win the next exchange. It was like it was a fun fight in that way, that they could just take that much damage and hand it out and never even try a takedown or anything. There was no grappling, no clinching, none of that. They just stayed. They just came in at range, slug it, bounce out, and come back and do it again. That was an incredible fight. But for a guy who's 23 years old to have that kind of calm and poise and all that stuff, it was cool to see.
He has a little bit of Ilia Topuria in him that way. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not doing Ilia Topuria as the next Conor McGregor and Joshua Van as the next Ilia Topuria. I'm not doing that. Yeah. But what you talk about is that poise, right? In an Ilia Topuria fight, it feels like he's just waiting for that moment that he knows is going to come. I feel like Josh Van is very similar in that regard, because it'd be easy for the volume that Royval is putting up. Most guys fold to that pressure, right? When he's jabbing him 4 times in a row and he's just continuing to walk forward and put it on him that way, a lot of guys fold to that. And it's why Royval is so successful. He's an absolute animal. But Josh Van is just waiting, and he just knows if he can get that opportunity, he's going to find it. And that's why I draw that comparison to Topuria.
They were so accommodating to each other, because it's like you could tell that Van was like, I want to counter him. I know he's aggressive, so I'll punish this aggression. And he waited for it. Boom, boom, boom. He would punish him. But Royval just kept coming after him. I'm like, this is great, because now they're just playing into each other's strengths. And there were occasions where Royval would get in there and land a series of really good shots. And you're like, okay, well, he's still doing his game plan, Just really fun stuff, man.
Okay, one more update from Dana White before we move on to the prelims, which we can hit pretty quickly. Dana reflects on Armin's title shot mistake and redemption. The guy had an opportunity to fight for the title and didn't make weight. You couldn't have fucked up anything worse than that. He was here as a backup fighter and made weight, so it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Poor Armin.
I don't know. I'm getting mixed messages here. I don't know if they want to do Paddy Pimblett or if they want to do Armin Sarukian. I'm glad that Armin Sarukian seems to have, by making weight as the backup fighter, Dana White's stance has softened, right? Because he was scathing.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
He was scathing about Armin when he pulled out of that fight. So I'm glad to kind of see that for Armin's sake, but I do hope we get Paddy Pimblett next.
Yeah, me too.
Moving on to the prelims. We talked about it earlier, or we at least touched on it. RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez knocking out Jack Hermanson absolutely viciously to the point that Jack had to be taken out of the octagon. We see it here. It was a scary scene. We got the medical updates. Just for anybody who's not aware, Jack Hermanson was medically cleared later in the night and he was okay. So glad to see that. But an absolutely vicious shot from Gregory Rodriguez, who has kind of been this guy who's like sniffing around the title opportunity, but never been able to kind of get there. He had the big opportunity against Jared Cannonier and came up short in that last one. Here, a win over Jack Hermanson, who's been incredibly tough and a stalwart of the division. I think this does propel him back toward that title conversation.
It should, man. And I mean, like when you see when you see him like that, you know, where he lands his hands like that, you're like, okay, it re-adds all the excitement. I always feel like guys like that can kind of you know, make you forget bad performances if they can go in there and do something like he did. That follow-up shot, though, man, like there was that picture where he's coming in like with that hammer fist at the end. It was so much like the Dan Henderson Bisping, wasn't it?
Yes,
like he knocks him out and then comes in there and just like hammer it, like unconscious dead guy on the ground. You're like, dude, don't do it, and he does it. That was
he's
brutal.
one of the most violent nice guys. Like he's one of those super smiley but insanely explosive and violent type of guys. I kind of like those. I have a fascination with him. But he seems like somebody who, look, I believe he's in his mid to late 30s. Let me just look at this real quick. He's only 33. So there's an opportunity here. He can rise, and the middleweight division is one that I think needs some names and faces to kind of turn over within it. We've kind of seen the same names.
That's why he needed to beat Cannonier, though. I'm like,
and that was the one.
Yes, he needed to win that one, like, because it was no knock on Cannonier. The dude's a warrior. He's been around for a long time, but he is like 40 plus now, right?
Yes.
And he's been up there for a while, and that's kind of that moment, right? Like you're supposed to leapfrog that guy and go into another situation. But I think he redeemed himself nicely here.
Jose Miguel Delgado with another vicious finish that we saw on this card over Hyder Emil. Explosive, just like got him quick. I think those were back-to-back, unless I'm mistaken. Yes, so Gregory Rodriguez, first round KO. Jose Miguel Delgado, 26 seconds to get it done with an incredible knockout over Hyder Emil. That one was kind of guaranteed fireworks because Hyder Emil is another guy who comes pedal to the metal.
He's like 35, but he was kind of a prospect, right? Like he was. It's like such a weird setup for that guy.
He got to it late, and he was one of these guys on the rise. But Delgado was the favorite and showed exactly why. We talked about bounce backs. Another one, Tracy Cortez hadn't fought since the Rose Namajunas fight, which happened in July 13 of 2024. So she had been
I want you to remember that. Like, that's 1 year, right? She comes back after 1 year. Joshua Van's 5-fight win streak has happened within that time frame.
Joshua Van's a different kind of cat, man.
Isn't that
danger in the very first round, but not anything super significant. Was able to, in fact, she would go on to win that round. She won on the scorecards 30-27. Yeah. Exactly what you need, right? This is how you get back on track against a veteran in Vivia Araujo. And now you kind of creep toward that title conversation. One of the things that is interesting about her potential climb in that title conversation is Jasmine Javicius is somebody who she has a win over, and since then Jasmine has been extremely busy. You talk about Josh Van, Jasmine has been another 100%. One who since that loss has been extremely busy, who is above. That would be a fight I'd love to see get run back. Would be fun. But I don't know if you're Jasmine, if you're now going, Tracy didn't really give me my opportunity to get a rematch. I don't know if I'm looking that way. I think that'd be a great fight though.
No, that'd be a great one. I mean, I'd be down for that one. By the way, did you guys had like a poster on your what were you doing? Like you had a poster or something on your what was that?
Do you not know about this?
So wait. So I wanted to point out because I was coming in and out and watching you guys and then watching the fight. But I kept hearing Connor say, "What it wanted to be Dumont or Araujo Grasso," and I was like, "Those are the two Apex fights that I was at." Like,
wow.
I was like, how does he like that is hilarious because I talk about this to Ariel all the time, but like it's always this hilarious thing that I was at the Apex twice, and those were the two Apex cards. He mentioned October, both of them in October. It was like just a funny thing that you guys are pointing out the worst possible cards that I happen to be at.
I'm tempted to go over and get the posters. I might do it in a second, but let me explain for everybody what happened. Myself and Connor Burks, the boys in the back, went to the UFC Apex and Performance Institute earlier today.
Okay.
We got a little bit of a tour. And part of the tour is you can go to the gift shop. It's like a merch store. In that merch store, oh, what a gem Frank is. He's bringing them over to me.
Here we go.
In that merch store is a tube. There's a like a mailer
grab
tube.
bag. All right.
No, like a tube,
Okay.
like a tube that you would mail a poster in. It's how
Okay.
you carry the poster. Inside that, they call it the mystery box. There are 3 posters in this mystery box. So the event poster signed by every fighter on the card. Everybody who's seen embedded or the social media account sees it. It's every single fighter doing their poster signing. There's 3 posters in there. It could be from UFC 229, where you got Khabib and Conor McGregor.
Right.
It could be from Lad Dumont. It could be from any
Which I'd
fight
be
in
honored to have.
between.
Yeah.
And so we bought one of these mystery crates. There were, I believe, 10 in total that existed. There were some that were missing. Somebody else had purchased them. We had purchased tube number 8. And inside tube number 8 were the following posters. I'm gonna do this for anybody who missed it. We got some gems here.
Okay.
I might have to hold it off to the side. Can we see this?
Yeah,
okay.
Let's see. All right. What do we got?
So this one is Fight Night Gregory Rodriguez, who just won, versus Jared Cannonier. The fight that we had just talked about.
Okay.
So Gregory Rodriguez versus Jared Cannonier, an Apex special.
That's
so
not
that
too
was,
bad.
That was an Apex special.
So wait, did you do like an unboxing on the?
We did an unveiling live on the air.
I love it.
Number 2, another Apex special. You're gonna see a theme here. This one.
What is that? Oh no.
Can we see that? Can we see the names on
Lord.
that?
I remember this one.
Mateus Nicolau versus Alex Perez.
I mean, that's big. That's big.
Another banger. Another banger. Number 3.
Wow.
By the way, I'm going to give this out to 3 different people who, if they are waiting outside of the Yahoo Sportsbook at the Venetian after we wrap this post show, I'm going to go give these away to a fan. And we got another Apex special here. This one, let's see the name.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Manel Kopp versus Almabayev. So
I hope it wasn't too expensive.
Let's just say that the $75 is well spent.
Okay, 75. I mean, you would have liked one pay-per-view in there or something, like
maybe a fight night that didn't happen at the Apex.
Yeah, or something like that.
Maybe just something. Now, I said to Connor, in hindsight, the fight night posters probably sell out. The pay-per-view posters probably sell out. This was the remaining. And a brilliant commenter in the YouTube chat said the following: nobody was laughing harder in the entire world than the man who was stuffing the posters into this tube and knowing what was awaiting us when we opened it up. But that's what we were doing with the posters.
Okay.
And I mean, we got a RoboCop. Shout out to RoboCop.
That is pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Who got a win on this card? Also got a win on this card. Won Terrence McKinney. T-Rex beating Slava Claus. It was a Terrence McKinney fight. It was over in the first round, and he didn't look too bad doing it. Submitted him via guillotine choke. I mean, I don't have more to say. Do you have anything to say?
No,
other than
but
that
I was going to
Terrence
say,
McKinney fight.
I think he was a slight favorite in this fight, but I was like, you look at something like that, I'm like, man, he has such a wild card. I just never know from fight to fight what to expect from him. But that's the best version. When you get that, man, he seems like a world beater when he shows up like that.
Yeah, he's kind of been up and down, right?
Yeah.
There was a point where it was like, he got into the UFC on a win streak and then reels off 2, loses 1 to Drew Dober, right? Step up in competition, wins 1, loses 2, wins 2, loses 1. Now he's back on a 2-fight win streak. It seems like the law of averages, like we're looking at a loss maybe, and it's probably going to happen in the first round because it's Terrence McKinney.
Yep.
I'm hoping we don't. I'm hoping what we see is the alternative.
It's fun though, man. Like it was a fun one, like for him to go through and it kind of set the table. I felt like that was the first one that just started getting rolling.
Yeah. Certainly, I think that was where the night kind of picked up. But T-Rex being T-Rex, we're going back down 1 to the second fight of the night with Jacoby Smith and defeating Nico Price.
Ooh, right. I forgot about that one.
He was the biggest favorite on the card.
Right.
It looked like maybe he wasn't going to fulfill the potential of that early in the fight, but then he came through and was able to finish it, doing what he needed to do to kind of establish himself.
He he kind of gassed in that fight, and I did a piece on him before this particular fight, and he was talking about his asthma when he was a kid and just kind of lung capacity and all that stuff. But the way he'd made it out, I was almost like that was one of the least things I thought would happen to him, because he was like, man, now I'm like Superman. I can just fight and fight and fight. So I was a little surprised to see him gassing in that fight a little bit. It might have been just as simple as Nico's tougher than he was thinking he would be.
I think that is certainly a part of it, right? We've seen Nico Price in the UFC for a long time, and he's an extremely tough and durable veteran. I think the line was maybe just a little irreflective of where this was, but gets the win and is able to kind of continue the momentum, and did what he needed to do.
Then he needs to work on his post-fight stuff, though. Was he just saying like Joe Rogan or whatever? I'm like, come on.
We'll get there. And in the opening fight of the night, Jonata Denise, Alvin Hines, kind of one-way traffic, although it was 29-28. Maybe I misremembered. Maybe I didn't see one of the rounds, but by the time that I had started tuning into this, and we had some technical difficulties getting set for the watch party, it seemed like Alvin just couldn't get to him, and Denise was punishing him. Denise is a very accomplished kickboxer. Alvin, I think, was undefeated heading into this, but looked like different levels of striking.
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, I had to get that one a little late too. It feels like it happened like 3 weeks ago. You know, you get to the end of these nights and you're like, damn, that was on the same card.
That is the perfect segue, because I want to close on this. Unless we get another update from Dana White at the press conference or anybody else. Was this the event of the year so far? Did this set what I've been talking about? June is kind of the turning point for the UFC, right? We got some fight nights that were out of the apex. We got this to look forward to. Now we're heading into July, where we've got Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier. We head into August, where we've got Hamza Chimaev versus DDP. It feels like this is where the momentum starts to build toward the end of the year. Who knows where Tom Aspinall and Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena falls. But these are the fights that we know are upcoming. These are the fights that we know still need to be scheduled. And we're looking toward the end of the year, and it's a tasty kind of treat. So I felt like this was kind of the turning point. I felt like June was the turning point, but maybe this pay-per-view in particular. How do you grade it? Was this the best event of the year? And
A plus. I wouldn't even hand that out normally. Like, I'm always reluctant, but I feel like they could not have gone better tonight. Like, it was one of those events where I felt like every fight delivered a little something. Like, it's at least the last 7 or 8. You know, every fight on the main card, compelling storylines all over the place. Added intrigue once they were done, you know, kind of left it all like guys who like stars being born, all this stuff. It had everything, man. It had the finishes. There's crazy knockouts. It's just, we don't get a lot of these now. So when you get them, before we even started, I'm like, wow, we get to do our first show. And like the first one we've done together, one of these, and it happens to be like one of the events of the last few years. You know what I mean? It was that good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just want to apologize to all our viewers. We'll get out of here on this. I just want to apologize because we had some technical difficulties. You saw Connor at the start of the show.
Yeah, I said it was the first show. It was the first show I was going to do with Connor, and I like talked to him for 2 seconds.
Can you hear me? Is my mic coming through?
Oh,
who's this? Who's
is he back?
Look,
I really can't even tell if my mic's working or not. Right
yes,
now.
I hear you.
It is. Yeah.
Let's go. Just in time. All right, guys. So Ilia defeats Charles.
The perfect part of this is his mic is cutting out. He comes back.
I did catch it though.
And his mic is cutting out.
He's ready to get into it now.
Frank fucked me. Frank.
I'm glad. So for the viewers out there, we're sitting in the same room that we did the watch party. The watch party was like on a couch, and we were looking at 2 big TVs. Connor is sitting at one end of the opposite end of the room, and I'm sitting on the other. But we had Frank ship out our home setup kit. Like, we shipped out our cameras, our mics, our lights, all our stuff. I picked the right spot. Right, I picked the spot where the microphone is.
He's in the dead zone,
and Connor unfortunately picked the wrong one.
That sucks.
I
hate the hate the internet.
Still not coming through.
I know. Yeah. we catch like every time you talk,
every
it's
other
like
word.
It's like the first couple words, and then it just goes off.
I'm out. Peace.
I think we're out too. Chuck, any final thoughts on the night? We both graded it an A+. We feel like this was a huge win for the UFC. Stars are born. Josh Van, Ilia Topuria, and others. Any final thoughts?
I would just say that, man, for a featherweight division, I mean, I keep saying that, for a flyweight division that so many times has been at death's door where you're not sure where it's going to go, this was the night for the flyweights, man. I never thought they would deliver like they did. There's a compelling storyline now. I feel like people are going to pay attention. It saves International Fight Week. You know what I mean? Like, it puts the stamp on something, and then you get the Topuria fight. I just think that this was a big score, and if it was a gamble at all, you know, to put back-to-back fights like that, it paid off in such a huge way, man.
Could not agree more. Showcase for the flyweight division. Ilia Topuria continues the run. Oh, we got a tweet here from Ilia Topuria.
Here we go.
17, as is custom.
With the Rose.
17-0 with the Rose. We saw him. I mean, we've talked about this extensively. We saw him update his bio to have already beaten Alexander Volkanovski. We see him celebrating already beating Charles. The man is undeniable. But it's been a fantastic night. Thank you, Chuck. I really enjoyed doing this.
I would
let's
get rid of the other fellows. We'll do it, man.
Yeah, let's just do it. Me and you. They're playing our music. They're queuing us out. Thank you to everybody who watched. Tune in on Monday. You will see another edition of the Ariel Helwani Show live from Vegas. We've got a bunch of more in-studio guests and a lot more on the uncrowned.com website, as well as the Uncrowned YouTube channel. For Eric Jackman, for Connor Burks, who's over there and unable to use his microphone, for Chuck Mindenhall.
There he is.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
See you, man.